Though we gather here today, bound together in sorrow and loss, we share a precious gift. We are all of us privileged to live a life that has been touched by Justice League Infinity. The 15 years after the fact tie-in comic possessed many extraordinary gifts, and it shared them with us freely. Really around $3.99 a pop. None of these gifts were more remarkable than its ability to discern what needed to be done, and its unfailing courage in doing it, whatever our bank accounts cost. Let us all strive to accept its gift and pass it along as an ongoing tribute to James Tucker, J.M. DeMatteis, Ethan Beavers, Nick Filardi, and Andrew Marino, the artists from the stars who taught us all how to be hero. I was trying to do a thing, I couldn't figure out how to translate that last bit. We're saying goodbye to Justice League Infinity today, and incidentally also goodbye to our comic book coverage videos, at least in this exact format. You've probably heard me talk about it in the last couple of BTAC JLI videos, but yeah, this is the last time we're gonna be doing an issue-by-issue breakdown of these things. I know that might be disappointing for a lot of you, including friggin' Ty Templeton. Come on, Ty, you're making me feel so bad about this. What the hell, man? I hope you're doing well, Ty, I really do. But not to worry, my beloved database. Any future DCAU comics, and a lot of the past ones that we haven't covered yet, will absolutely make their way into videos on this channel, in the form of individual coverage on our podcast, and bigger breakdowns for timeline, canonicity, Easter eggs, everything you've come to expect from us. We've even got some spin-off topics a-cookin' for dangling plot threads or character histories and origins and all sorts of stuff. Plenty of content coming to you from good ol' us. So stick around because this is gonna be kind of a special one. And don't forget that at the end of this video, we'll be announcing the winner of a box of DCAU comics we're giving away, pulled from the comments of last video. And with those reminders out of the way, it's time to dive into the final issue of Justice League Infinity and point out everything we could possibly point out, and then some, because that's how we roll. We roll way too far and too much. So, corrections speedrun. The last one ever, question mark? Haas Kirkland informs me that the bleed, the space between Earths in the DC multiverse that I last time attributed to the New 52, actually originated in the Authority comics published by Wildstorm in 1999, specifically the first issue of that title. Ollie Poppers was quick to point out that although we said the Family Guy chicken fights happened after the 90s were a thing of the past, the first chicken fight did happen in 1999. What's with all this 1999 stuff? However, our point was that the fights, plural, as Joker refers to them back in the Adventures Continue Season 1, wouldn't have been a thing until 2005 when the second fight occurred. We talked about this last season as well, but it was worth bringing back up again because I don't know, because I'm persnickety as fuck. Matthew Vollmer reminds me that a version of the Joker did become mayor, as the DCAU one threatens to do in BTAC, in Batman Lost #1 from 2018, a tie-in to Dark Knight's Metal. Batman continuously finds himself in different dark multiverse settings, including a Gotham where Joker is mayor, and the only law is there are no laws. But we never actually see this mayor Joker, just his Joker's style followers. Ian Watson suggests that since we did get a Star Wars, Star Trek hybrid action figure in Fogel's toy store, it reasons that the spaceship hanging from the ceiling isn't necessarily an off-brand USS Enterprise, but possibly a combo of the Enterprise and the Millennium Falcon. I wonder if this is all just memorabilia from that Star Trek show that we got a glimpse of in Batman Adventures Volume 2. Unless something else says otherwise, that's my new headcanon. Thanks, Jordan. There's totally a RATSI usage in JLU's Patriot Act, and we just completely forgot about it.
I'll thank you to hand that syringe over now, RATSI.
So it is pronounced RATSI. Neat, I guess. And Philip Boylard suggests that JLI's Wonder Dog-looking dog cavalry dog may actually be colored in reference to Dino-Mutt, the canine sidekick of the Blue Falcon from the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And maybe, I don't know, Nick Filardi hasn't answered whether or not the coloring is a reference to anything. Come on, Nick, fess up! I'm honestly surprised at you folks. Nobody caught us on Ted's epic fail on Marge Harriet's electricity ears. I even looked up whether they'd existed tested before while editing the last video, and found she did have that ability at least once back in 2018's Batgirl Volume 5, number 25, and purposely left it out of the video because Ted literally says,
I have questions, and I hope you have answers for the next and final correction speedrun.
but you don't. This was your last chance, internet. How could you? You had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment. You let it slip. But you did have a lot of fun suggestions for what the Amazo Luthor, not Amazo 2, but I used to call it Amazo 2, whatever it should be called. Suggestions like Lexo, though I think that's a little too close to Lexo Suit or Lexo Scale 5000. Lexo, that's basically the same thing. Amaziac. I feel like that's a combination of Amazo and Brainiac, which is not what this is. Amaze-Thor, which does sound cool, but it sounds like a combination of Amazo and Thor. What were you the god of again, Aussie Dragoon? Amazo-L, because Luthor takes the L. It could be like pronounced Amazo Lambda, which is the 11th letter of the Greek alphabet, but we can't have Greek letters before Zeta. Get out of here! Lame-Azo, because it was lame we never saw it in action. Not bad, not bad, but I think my favorite submission was Alex. I just love the idea that this guy's name is Alex. Just Alex. Wait a second, they totally just reused the design for when the original Amazo copies Luthor's face when he first meets him in Tabula Rasa. That's the same thing! Were the producers just flipping through old character models looking for inspiration and saw that one and went, yeah, that'll work, and now we have Alex, San Reba, James Tucker, somebody. I need answers. Was the entire Cadmus plot based around stumbling upon the original Alex model sheet?
That was the last piece I needed.
Oh, and one more thing. We had assumed that the Earth D Green Lantern in JL Infinity was based on Jose Hernandez from the original Earth D in comics. Then in JLI number 5, it was revealed his real name was Jorge, or Jorge, as Ted said. Maybe, is that right? I don't know. Don't make us say words. Which was continuing the trend of these are almost the same characters as you'd expect, but not quite the same. Had to get one more in there. I'll never do that again, probably. But I just realized he's totally called Jose in number 6. Aquaman of Earth D said his name, he said 2 different names. Is it Jorge or Jose? Which one is the typo?
Somebody tell me!
DCAU References. Yeah, we're splitting this up into categories again. Big whoop, wanna fight about it? We might as well, right? It's the last time. Batman mentions the killer of his parents, Joe Chill, directly by name, which is interesting considering the last chronological time we saw Joe Chill in this universe was in Batman Adventures Volume 2, number 17, during the comic run that ran concurrently on the timeline with the Justice League cartoon. And Batman 100% did not recognize the guy. Joe Chill lived with the horrible PTSD of killing the Waynes and seeing Bruce's face everywhere, but when Batman confronted him, Batman didn't even know who he was. Clearly some part of his brain remembers at least what Joe Chill looks like, considering Batman's Black Mercy dream and For the Man Who Has Everything, written by J.M. DeMatteis. But this is our first instance of Batman knowing the name of his parents' murderer. And it actually kind of nicely debunks our sort of silly, did the Joker kill Batman's parents video from a couple years back, based on how the Joker, as a young Jack Napier, did kill Bruce's parents in the Tim Burton universe. And besides, that Batman Adventures issue with Joe Chill got Kid Bruce's age wrong anyway, and the amount of time between when Thomas and Martha were killed and present day. It's a weird timeline issue in the issue. So we've already considered that specific story non-canon for a long time. It's all good. Canonical Joe Chill is best Joe Chill. Green Lantern making a construct bubble to protect Batman and others from a time stream destroying void is similar to when he did the same thing at the end of the Once and Future Thing. Is this a purposeful nod to that moment? We may never know. What I do know is that the Flash apparently knows about the Speed Force to the extent of actually tapping into it here, and the other Leaguers know about it too. Like we talked about when we covered JLI number 1, Wally only found out about the Speed Force in JLU's Divided We Fall. In fact, we have a whole video about the DCAU's Speed Force that you should watch. That's why I'm talking about it. So the lightning Flash is seen with in number 1 could now be sort of retconned to being Speed Force connectivity, for sure. During Ted's recent interview with colorist Nick Filardi, Nick even mentioned that the creative team on this comic did have a conversation about using the lightning and decided to go with it. And the other Leaguers knowing about it? Well, Wally did literally say,
there's a force, a Speed Force. It's calling me home.
So it's a good thing we've clarified all of that so the Flash can just run in a circle real fast for a couple minutes. Batman also name drops the Joker and Two-Face, referring to them as psychopaths, which is interesting considering how Bruce Wayne is like always out there trying to help his old buddy Harvey. Justice League versus the Fatal Five, which theoretically happens not too long after this comic, even has Two-Face being on the up and up, making some real progress on his rehabilitation. So like, man, psychopath? Harsh, Batsy. Harsh. Harvey. No. This is our first time seeing Dr. Fate and Green Arrow actually within an issue. Before, we'd seen them on the cover of number 3, as well as cameos from Wildcat, Aquaman, and Supergirl. Thank God Supergirl was not also standing here. But oh man, Wonderbat shippers, rejoice. We could not have asked for more, really. Well, we could have. You know what more would amount to, but we don't need more, let's say. This is perfect. This is good. This is Kingdom Hearts? Absolutely a reference to Sora reaching out to his definitely not girlfriend as all the worlds snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity around them. You can't tell me it's not. Get up on the Hydra's back. It's pretty cool how Batman is a key player in rebirthing the multiverse, considering how his show gave birth to the DCAU to begin with. Batman's captions also referred to the anti-life equation's embodiment of Amazo 2 as the Demon Within, which was also the title of a New Batman Adventures episode. Probably a coincidence, but hey, Batman said it, so I'm gonna count it.
I've never seen you laugh before. I don't think I like it.
More like the Batman who laughs. He didn't show up in either comic. At the end, there's a little JL cake topper, which is totally the logo graphic used in various promotional materials for Justice League back in the day. Looking at that cake, I can almost hear Keith David going, "On the next Justice League." We also saw this logo on the lawn of the Metro Tower in JLU, so it is an in-universe JL logo too. It's not just Cartoon Network commercials. It's real. So Blue Beetle just knows Flash's name. In Starcrossed, Flash was very hesitant to let even his fellow founding members know. And even Lex Luthor, one of the smartest mans in all of the place, didn't know.
I have no idea who this is.
Though in JLU, everyone's just kind of tossing around each other's secret identities in casual conversation. Wait, then how many people know Batman is Bruce Wayne? Actually, it's a lot of people. Oh my God, Jean can turn invisible, confirmed. If you've seen my video about all of Jean's superpowers, then you know this moment from A Night of Shadows has bugged me for going on multiple decades. I guess I can safely say he was invisible here, finally, not just intangible. I mean, Miss Martian can turn invisible in Fatal 5, it would only make sense that Jean could, except Miss Martian's not a Martian, go watch that video too, I'm plugging all the videos. This shot of Overman at the cemetery is a 100% direct rip from the end of Apocalypse Now, Part 2, from Superman the Animated Series, which is a really nice homage, trees and sky and everything. Overman's cape shape is even the exact frame from this pan screenshot from the World's Finest fan site. Do DCAU artists use the World's Finest for reference? Jim, this is huge! And lastly for this segment, this pose Green Lantern strikes at the end of the issue is pretty dang similar to the one he's in this promo image for Justice League from around 2001 or so. But hey, only so many ways you can draw Green Lantern flying. Oh no. His hand is green again? Oh, no, sorry, that's just the aura from his ring. On the wrong hand, beavers! That's it from me. You'll see Ted here in a second, and then Maddie after that. That's how it goes. But stick around to the end for our giveaway winner and a little sneak peek that you won't want to miss. Ooh, I'm all tingly. Comic book references.
As the series' final issue, the only references this comic book can make are backwards. So no more foreshadowing, only foreshadowing? Does that make sense? Not really? Okay. Well, when Jean discovers that Wonder Woman possesses the power to end this crisis, Diana mentions how she felt a momentary surge of power upon Darkseid's death in issue number 4, but we didn't actually see that play out on the page. She did ask in captions, can anti-life ever truly die, as Kirby dots float away, which may have been the setup to the discovery in this issue. And if that Crisis name drop wasn't obvious enough, the original Crisis series also featured panels that faded from white to black to show emptiness as universes are destroyed, which was a theme reused here in JLI number 7, as well as a black void where the universe once was or should have been, like when the original Superman of Earth 2 discovered that his universe was gone. Harnessing the life equation is very similar in concept to how the White Lantern entity of life was used to defeat Necron and the Black Lanterns in the Blackest Night comic arc from 2009. The entity even went on to resurrect some of the heroes and villains who had become zombies, just like how Wonder Woman tapped into the life equation to bring back all the other heroes from the Justice League and Justice Alliance lost in the fight against Amazo 2. The White Lantern is literally the embodiment of the white light of creation that birthed the universe. The entity embedded itself within the Earth, and its existence went unknown even to the likes of Krona, who witnessed the Big Hand at the dawn of time, which first occurred in 1965's Green Lantern Volume 2 number 40, though it would take Crisis to establish that the hand typically belonged to the Anti-Monitor. The Green Lantern series in the New 52 rewrote events to add a power ring on the hand, ultimately revealed to be Volthoom, the first Lantern. Volthoom is also the voice in Power Ring's Power Ring from the Crime Syndicate. However, as recently as Death Metal number 7, we learned that the Hands are a group of entities said to be the sources of creation at the dawn of time throughout the Omniverse, and peers of Perpetua, mother of the Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger. In fact, out of the chaos of Death Metal, Wonder Woman was called to reboot the multiverse, as she did here in JLI. The page where the Justice League and Justice Alliance shake hands and depart is very similar to the cover for issue number 3 by Dan Mora, though maybe someone forgot to tell him that Earth D Batman was disabled in the Whirly Bat, because he definitely stands up on that cover. Oops. Obviously the layout wouldn't have worked with the Batmans facing each other if Earth D Batman was sitting in his chair, and having Batman near the front draws a wondering comic store patron's eyes to the cover. I mean, it usually works for our video thumbnails. Usually. I really like the concept of Jean becoming the new ambassador to Apocalypse to help broker peace between Granny Goodness, Calabac, and other warring forces, but it may not work out well for him. In the recent Justice League Last Ride miniseries by Chip Zdarsky, which operated in its own continuity, Jean was killed on Apocalypse, though that wouldn't be the end of his story. Read it for yourself. Also, back in 2001's Martian Manhunter number 33 by John Ostrander, we see flashbacks to Mars prior to the Martians being wiped out. Apocalyptian forces attempted to make contact, even with Jean, under the pretense of friendship. But it was really just a scheme to steal their sciences and another attempt to identify the anti-life equation. Typical Apocalypse, always after the anti-life equation. Do they get it? Sometimes. But Jean's new status as being an Apocalypse ambassador raises some questions for DCAU continuity, especially in regards to the future of Batman Beyond. With Big Barda already an official member of the League in JLI, as confirmed by James Tucker, will Jean's role tie into her League status in The Call? How does this work with Orion being Darkseid's son, and basically the heir to the throne? We explored this concept in our own Legacies webcomic, though admittedly based on similarities to Kingdom Come. I would know, I wrote the Legacies issue. I purposely based it off Kingdom Come, so confirmed. Eric Carrasco also confirmed with us that Jean is involved in the DCAU's Rann-Thanagar War during the events of Justice League vs. the Fatal Five, which is theoretically somewhat shortly after this comic, so he likely doesn't stay on Apocalypse for too long anyway. However, Eric has stated that since his ideas haven't yet been played out on screen or in comic print, they are technically just well-informed headcanon. So let's hope another season of JLI or a #JL reunion movie might touch on some of this stuff. Amazo reconstructing Amazo 2 from his destroyed particles feels a lot like how Dr. Manhattan is brought back to life in Watchmen, with his atoms reassembled, and a circulatory system walks through the kitchen. Speaking of which, all of these comic book references are making me hungry. Look, I'm sure I can speak for all of us Watchtower Data Buds when I say that we are so grateful for the Justice League Infinity comic series. Not only is more material to make content for on YouTube, and not just because it's a continuation of Justice League Unlimited, but also because it fits pretty dang well in the established DCAU continuity. It's cozy, you know? There's still some timeline stuff to get to and flesh out in a sec, but let me have my sandwich and eat it too. I'm dying. I should have had a glass of water, but I know you're gonna keep that awful cough in there. Oh my god, why did I write this?
Timeline stuff.
Oh, where to start? Where to start? This comic was so well planned out and held so much reverence for the DCAU and its fans that I don't know where to start. Not a lot of this info is timeline stuff in the sense of this goes over here because that goes over there. So really, I guess I can just jump in wherever I want. Why don't we go with the thing that I'm most excited to talk about? The love pentagon. I want to do a whole video on this at some point because the John, Shiera, Vixen, Rotalic, Carter Hall back and forth is a massive focal point in the cartoons. But first, let's talk about what Justice League Infinity brought to that dynamic. I've been theorizing from the beginning that we were going to get some sense of closure in regards to John and Shiera's relationship. And wow, did DeMatteis and Tucker deliver. Just going back to that first issue and seeing Shiera tell John, "You're not the center of the universe," hits a lot different now that we know what happened with them and Vixen at the literal center of the multiverse. There may be some more bumps along the way. After all, who knows what the future holds for stories in the DCAU? John and Shiera on opposing planets during the Rann-Thanagar War, anyone? But as of right now, all signs are pointing towards Warhawk in the time of Batman Beyond, which is incredibly refreshing given the amount of times I've had to quote that "we were doing the season you might have seen if we had never put it aside to do Batman Beyond" line from Paul Dini in regards to the adventures continue. I wonder if later down the line, like after we have the full DCAU timeline nailed down and newcomers to the franchise start exploring it in that way, if this will feel a bit rushed. After all, while we've had a decade and a half to mull over the lingering questions of what would play out for John, Mari, and Shiera, and have seen other writers take a stab at it, poor choice of words on my part, for folks who may not have experienced JLU as it was airing, this would logically be the next step after they finished the show, right? Well, maybe not. Remember the second to last episode of Justice League Unlimited when Luthor killed the ever-loving frick out of Gorilla Grodd?
I'll get out of this, and when I do!
Surprise! Justice League Infinity suggests he's not dead at all here at the end. This feels out of place, right? Kinda similar to how Superman Brainiac Attacks ended.
Kent, you're back not a moment too soon. Seems some superpowered imp calling himself Mr. Whatever he's called. He's causing some kind of cockamamie topsy-turvy down at the wharf.
A promise that the adventure continues by throwing a random bad guy name into the mix. But for a comic that holds so true to the DCAU continuity, why make that a dead character? Well, maybe Justice League Infinity isn't the first thing post JLU. While James has a habit of dismissing the original Justice League Unlimited tie-in comics as likely non-canon, and with good reason, later in the series run, there were a handful of issues that firmly placed themselves after the show and moved things forward for our heroes. One of which, issue number 39 to be exact, makes reference to Grodd returning from space, suggesting he didn't actually die. And he even makes a full appearance in the penultimate, that means second to last, issue, number 45. Though that one has Jean working monitor duty, so maybe it's meant to take place earlier? I don't know. Someone should really do a timeline of these at some point. How exactly did Grodd survive though? Your guess is as good as mine, but we do know Bruce Timm has always said that unless you see the body, nobody is truly dead, and even then, we've got a Shawl of Magdalene around here somewhere, right?
Her foot twitched, I swear to God.
He was twitching because he's got my axe embedded in his nervous system.
Funny thing is, even at the time of airing, people on the Toon Zone message boards were suggesting they thought Grodd could still be alive. Well, guess what, forum users Grimlock and AJ? It may have taken 15 or so years, but actual writers from the Justice League Unlimited show have now confirmed your suspicions. Congrats! Guess maybe that means there's also hope for all the guesses we've made during the runs of these comics too. Stop the count, James. The scoreboard can't be talked about for another 15 years. Wally bemoaning rampaging gorillas again seems to be a reference to the time Grodd transformed everyone to primates in Dead Reckoning. But James thinks that the transformation didn't reach too far past what we saw in the episode, and left it in my notes that he thinks maybe some of the old DC superheroes coloring books are actually canon now. Why would they do that? I'm more with the Tim Talk guys on this one.
Only humans. Presumably not, because Superman also turns into an ape. The big question that I have is, we know that at this point, Martian Manhunter is hiding as a human. Was there a moment when everyone turned into an ape except for John Jones, who's just standing there going like, oh shit?
I think probably what happened was he turned into an ape for a second, but he turned himself back into a human because he can just shapeshift again. But then he saw everyone else was still an ape and had to like turn back into an ape.
Yeah, because he's trying to be undercover. He's going incognito. So did he do it? I don't know.
Speaking of green people, we see a handful of familiar Green Lanterns in this issue. Though, interestingly, they don't seem to be wearing the same costumes we saw in their last chronological appearance, Justice League Unlimited's The Return, or in the case of Kyle and Kilowog, they're not quite in their Justice League versus the Fatal Five looks either. Hell, even the planet Oa looks a little bit in between the designs from both of these stories. Kinda reminds me of Mogo a little bit. You guys know Mogo, right? Okay, if you said no, you gotta go check out Green Lantern the Animated Series. James and I both watched it over the course of the last year, and there might be some content down the line, so quick, binge it before you get spoiled. Honestly, while the Green Lantern suits do match earlier representations of these characters, between the changes of Oa itself and Kilowog by the time of Fatal Five, it kinda makes me wonder if maybe there was just a small hiccup in the process of rebirthing the multiverse that shook things up just a teeny bit by the time of that movie. Or maybe the Green Lantern energy just does weird things like that. It did make Jon Stewart's eyes green after all. And since we're on the topic of Justice League versus the Fatal Five, we already assumed that the Return of the Joker flashback occurs after that movie due to Miss Martian transforming into Timm and Harley's whereabouts being known. But if there was still any doubt, references being made to the Joker in this comic certainly seems to imply he's still alive and kicking. But now that Justice League Infinity seems to be over for good, barring the possibility of an announcement of a season 2, maybe we should take a look at some loose threads that need to be tied up before catching up to Justice League versus the Fatal Five. I've already touched on the Ranthanagar War, Jean's absence from monitor duty, and Kilowog's bulking up, but we've still got room to add in details about Miss Martian and Jessica Cruz joining the League. We recently did an entire video on Miss Martian's origin that you should check out if you haven't yet, but until that's all set to paper and published by DC Comics or Warner Bros., it sits in that weird in-between of canon and headcanon of one of many DCAU writers. If we do get a season 2 for Justice League Infinity and either character appears, I wonder if they'd even address these threads or treat them similarly to Blue Beetle.
Look, it's me. I'm here. Deal with it. Let's move on.
Otherwise, I think the last dangling thread is Wonder Woman starting to regularly use a sword. She's had one on her wall in the Watchtower ever since The Balance, but Justice League versus the Fatal Five is really the first time we see her use it. Well, not necessarily that sword. They seem to be different, Kilowog and Oa, but hey, she's got a shield there too. Why doesn't she use that bad boy more often? Whether or not a continuation of this story occurs, as much as I'd love to see all of these threads addressed, I want to keep in mind that they don't have to be touched on. We had a lot of hopes and expectations going into Justice League Infinity, and not a lot of them actually ended up playing out how we anticipated. But what we did get instead was an absolutely masterful story from the crew involved. A love letter to the DCAU, and a beautiful gift to the fans. Whatever happens next, if this crew is in on it, I know it's going to be good.
Scoreboard! All right. Here's the deal. Originally, I had about 3 full pages of script going on a super hyper sugar rush zany James rant all about everything that we've guessed for both of these comics dating back to last May, totaling up all of the scores across BTAC and JLI and making a billion excuses to not wind up in the red for both of them. But really, that's not what I want to do here. Mostly because I want to get to the conclusion segment where I'm sure Ted, Maddie, and I will all have some nice closing thoughts on this issue and the comic series as a whole. Yes, I'm about to hop on a Zoom call with the Data Buds and close this thing out in style, but I will at least touch on the scores. This is a long-running, completely pointless game I've been playing because, to be honest, I had no idea where I was going with it from the start. And at one point I even joked that if we did well enough, we would make a video on the Zeta project. Like, that would never happen. But it's still been fun to speculate all along the Watchtower. And that's been the true beauty of doing these videos for every single issue. And I'm sure at least one of you out there has been giving a crap about it. We left off a couple videos ago at 3 points for JLI and 0 for BTAC. We guessed a lot of stuff throughout all these issues, a lot of stuff that did come true, but a lot more stuff that didn't or was never even addressed at all. So for the sake of everything life and anti-life, I'm not gonna tally anything that wasn't proven right or wrong. Those just cancel themselves out. They don't count. For BTAC, throughout all the issues, we guessed correctly that the Mayfields would be an important present-day family in Gotham, though we did specifically say they'd be connected to the mall from BTAS, and that was never really confirmed one way or the other, so I'll say that's a 0.5. That Mystery of the Batwoman characters would appear. Penguin and Rupert Thorne count, right? Okay, I won't actually award a point for that one. And that Mayfield saying second chance was foreshadowing Two-Face, and holy shit, Two-Face showed up, but we guessed incorrectly that Maureen Hill would be revealed to be the real head of the Court of Owls, that Batman and Batgirl would have an ongoing romance subplot, that Mr. Wing poisoned Penguin's lemonade and took over the Iceberg Lounge, and that Mayfield's offshore connections was referring to Jason and Slade, though I have no idea why we guessed that because that line happened in the Year One flashbacks. Idiots.
Oh, and look at that. All rich people do have the same windows. Did you get a scoreboard point for rich people windows?
Yeah, why not? Leaving us with a score of -1.5 for Batman The Adventures Continue Season 2. Then for JLI, we got these guessaroonies right. Wally is in tune with the Speed Force, thank you Nick Filardi Lightning, and there were more Ethan Beaver's Instagram sketches put into play, but we did guess that would include Supergirl, so only half a point. But we got all these guesseroonos wrong. The last couple issues were not narrated by Hawkgirl and Green Lantern. Superman did not propose to Lois by the end of the series. We did not get Flashpoint Batman. Darkseid and Lex did not return from the Source Wall and punch Amazo Dose in the face. Lois did not become a Justice Leaguer and Green Lantern did not die. That was one guess combined. It only counts as 1 point gone, okay? Well, technically everyone in the entire multiverse except for Batman and Wonder Woman died for just a second there, so I'm putting half a point back on. And last and definitely least, we guessed that there would be a cliffhanger ending that would demand a season 2. Does Grodd being back count as a cliffhanger? Yes it does. In fact, it counts so hard that it's worth 9 points. We're at 10 points, woo! And its scoreboard juices are so potent, they're even crossing universes because BTAC's in a different universe, right? Shit if I know. Since the timeline works differently there, it's worth 11.5 points. We have 10 points on the board for both comics. Great job, us. You know what that means. It's time to announce the giveaway winner. If this is you, you won the comics. Send us an email at contest@watchtowerdatabase.com. Name, mailing address, we'll get them to you. And if you won the Nightwing thing last time, you have to email us or we can't send it to you. You won. Send us an email, please. If you don't do it in the next week, we're picking someone else. Our next giveaway is at 84,000 subs, which is more comics. Batman and Nightwing ones this time. So get people to subscribe. Tell the entire world about the Watchtower Database. Hurry up already. And with that, it's time to get on the old computer with my YouTube pals and bring all this nonsense to a close. Oh, hi. This is sort of like a tease preview sort of deal about the future of talking about these comics because we're hoping to bring back the podcast pretty soon.
It's been like 2 years, I think, since we last did.
Yeah,
it was 12th level intellects, and now it's 13th level intellects.
Copyrighted, trademarked, don't take it.
We're here right now because we want to wrap up this cool comic book breakdown set of videos that you've definitely been watching all of. We're just going to talk about what we thought of Justice League Infinity.
It's a continuation of Justice League Unlimited. I mean, how's that not awesome? We've wanted that for years. I have, anyway, and here it is.
But it's done in such a mature and reverent way to the source material with thoughtfulness and compassion and just a lot of stuff that while we had predictions that like came to bear out, it threw us a lot of curveballs. Were any of you expecting genderqueer John Jones?
Right.
No.
Yeah. It feels very modern, but it also just feels like this came right off the ending of JLU without missing a beat.
Definitely things in it that like hit my check marks I wanted from it, like more Wonder Bat, a little bit of closure on Hawkgirl and Green Lantern. Like even Wonder Woman was dealing with like, is Hades my father or not? And like there was a little bit of that.
Somehow everything that was a question from JLU, except the question, showed up in this, just expanded on it in a way that makes me like, okay,
yeah,
thank you for doing that.
Amazo, we got closure for where Amazo.
Even though now there's just two Amazos floating around out there.
They picked up so many plot threads, moved the ball forward, and felt like there was reason for this comic to exist.
And that none of them feel unearned because they're paying such close attention to JLU, to the DCAU at large. So.
Except for Gorilla Grodd.
Except for Gorilla Grodd.
I love that they brought the multiverse into it. I mean, like, we've had multiverse stuff with Justice Lords, Brave New Metropolis, and Justice Guild in a way, like, stuff like that. But here, like, we specifically have Earth X and Earth D, which are, like, the perfect polar opposites of each other. Like, this, like, sort of love and hate dynamic of like diversity versus fascism.
There was such a compassionate way of looking into that. It never blamed, I guess, like the just average Joe. It looked at things in a much larger systemic fashion. That's not something you get a lot of in a tie-in comic for a cartoon.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah. These are really heavy themes. So it was really cool to see them get tackled in that way.
And the fact that it's only 7 issues and did all of this stuff, and none of it felt like, oh my god, they're cramming in so many things. Like the first issue, it's just granny goodness apocalypse stuff, and none of that does anything later. It just existed as a, hey, remember JLU? Yeah, that was a cool thing. And now, the story that we want to tell. And I think that was a really good, like, bridge.
I'm so glad that they did the multiverse in the way that they did it instead of the way that we were expecting. That's really interesting and, like, would not have happened if it was like, and now Metron is here from Gods and Monsters and we're going to the Brave and the Bold world. It's a story that's very much driven by the themes that it wanted to get across.
Yeah, they could have definitely gone the route of, like, it's Teen Titans, it's the Batman, oh my god, look everybody. That wouldn't have been a story about the DCAU Justice League. And I think that's the first time in continuity also of calling something Earth something. Like, even the Justice Guild, they just said, you know, there's multiple Earths and they vibrate at different frequencies, and that's like the most we ever got about it. There's not been like the Justice Swords are Earth 3 or whatever.
JLI's got letters. We've got letters, not numbers. So it's Earth X,
that's
Earth D.
True. That's true.
It could be Earth A and Earth B. I think there's infinite Earths and there's a crisis of them.
There sure is. The final page of this last issue is really good, and I want it as a poster immediately. It's a very much the same as the end of JLU with like, well, running off to do the thing. See you next time. The adventure continues, everybody.
I would love a poster of like almost any of the art from this book.
Really.
Like Ethan Beavers and Nick Filardi together needs to happen more often. Like I'm just flipping through. There's so many in this issue specifically that are textless pages, like Batman and Wonder Woman rebirthing the multiverse, and it just like beaming on out and rippling and everything. Everybody watching their Earths just vanish is insane. They thought about it. They staged it. Like they took the time.
This comic is probably the best looking DCAU comic. Nothing against the team on BTAC and like Monica Cabina's coloring we're always gushing about, but there's just such thought, like you're saying, put into every panel. Every moment is like high level because it's Justice League Unlimited and it is the multiverse story that we're telling, but it somehow manages to still be this like personal story of like 3 or 4 characters. And I think that the fact that it looks so good, we get a lot of comments that say, animate this. And like, yeah, that would be great, but this does not need to be, this looks amazing as it is.
The different at 30 years, I guess.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, coloring has come a long way.
Yeah,
this is like 15 years in the making. This is a thing that's, you know, they've had time to stew on on, and we really want to tell this instead of we're being paid to tell this what can we come up with.
And you know DC's probably had like a creative team at least once a year, maybe more than one, pitch them, let's continue Justice League Unlimited.
I mean, they had Aaron Sparrow.
Yeah, we know of at least one of them, I can see this comic being like, not a jump the shark, but in a similar vein of like, literally everything ever got erased and Batman and Wonder Woman brought it all back. What can you do from here that is like as big as stakes as that? And really you can't, but it doesn't have to be. Just keep giving me anything written by these people, drawn by these people. I think that it can succeed at whatever they want it to be because they're so present and attached to their own work from the past rather than just kind of being like, I guess here's more stuff. Did you want this?
A large part of why this comic succeeded has a lot to do with the fact that while Tucker and DeMatteis aren't the first names you think about when you're thinking about DCAU writers, they are people who came into the fold much later on, like as the universe was being built, had the chance to have witnessed it from the outside and build reverence before being in the room, and that reverence still carried all these years later.
Yeah, the Eric Carrascos of the world need to be in on this stuff more often.
I'm just grateful there's more stuff in this universe. It's just fun to revisit the DCAU.
It's just so good. I just like it so much. I didn't expect it to be like now near the top of my things I will return to in the DCAU. Like as it expanded, like, oh, okay, this is really good. Addressing the stuff that we wanted to see addressed without it being the only thing they do. That's just something that we struggle with for Legacies all the time, is like we want to tell all these quote unquote hidden stories that nobody's seen that we know happened but never saw it on screen or whatever, while trying to also like weave our own story into it and have it not just be the continuity and then the continuity and then the continuity and then instead it's just Ted putting puns everywhere, but it works out.
I'm looking forward to getting the graphic novel put it on my shelf.
Yes, oh absolutely. Andrew Marino is the editor, I believe. Just a real heartfelt thank you to him. I remember seeing a tweet like right around the time that it was announced where he was just like, I have been trying so hard to get this to happen. You know, he had to wrangle them together. And it might have been easy yeses from everybody on board. Either way, he is the reason that the talent and DC connected and the book got made.
Well, this has been a taste of the podcast.
That's the end of this.
I gotta say, this was a lot more fun than the way that we've been doing.
It is actually.
Hands. Touching hands. Reach out. Touching me. Touching you. Sweet Caroline. The good times never felt so good. I've been inclined to believe they never would.
Ted's not even trying.
I'm matching the lyrics perfectly.